Good Wednesday to you, everybody. Incom 664. Welcome to week boom 4. How you doing? You hanging in there? You doing all right? Let's get this video started. Let's see. Who do we have here today? Oh yes, Black Wolf. Ooh, look at that. Kind of nasty. Black Rifle Coffee Company. Very fine company, veteran run. I think I picked this cup up in Phoenix, Arizona, I believe. All right, during a visit there. Okay, excuse me. So for this week's video, per usual, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing in week 4. Again, excuse me. Allergy season, which is really, in the neighborhood that I live in, the part of the country is something like March through November for me, at least. So you'll forgive me. Anyway, this week 4, we're back into readings from both MIP and MAP, and we're going to take a look at who's spinning the message, who is driving the media. Is it the government, or who is driving the government? Is it the media? And there, in fact, this phenomena is so well established that the media highlights a story, and our government tends more so to react than to act, and so the media throws up a story, and then members of the government, seeing that the public is seeing it, and here's the tricky thing: whether the story is actually of great importance or being told accurately, sometimes doesn't factor into the equation. And the government, members of Congress or the president or something, seeing that people are seeing it, and I go, oh, we got to do something. Okay, and this is often referred to, this phenomenon in which, instead of the government doing things and then the media following along, the media does things and government follows along. Sometimes referred to as a wag the dog. That is when what should be, the servant, that is the tail, becomes the master. Or it was so pronounced during the Gulf Wars, first and second, that it became known as the CNN effect, because when CNN would report, then Congress would suddenly do something. And, it can be destabilizing to a democracy, because then, this triangulation we're looking at through the semester, we have government on the top, and we have media and the citizenry. That you have the media that wants to drive revenue from the citizenry, so it'll put up inflammatory, hyped stories for clickbait and views. So the media puts that up, and the viewing public goes, oh, we have to look at this. We have to look at this. And then Congress goes, and usually not nearly that reflective. They go, oh, look, our constituents are paying attention to this, and they want us to do something. And sometimes, especially where government is concerned, doing nothing is better than doing anything. In fact, our government was constructed by design to tie itself into knots and make it hardish for it to readily and repeatedly impact the lives of we citizens. We refer to it as a system of checks and balances. Well, think of check, this term, not as an, oh, I'm checking up on you, but like hockey check, like slam. I'm going to throw you off course and stop what you're doing. And our government was designed that way, to keep it away from the citizenry. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week in the readings and in the questions. Now, you have another film review due. That is January 9th. Okay. I've graded all of your first ones, so you should get some feedback from me. If you have any questions, be sure to email me. This week, I will be out of the office. I will not have office hours on Friday. Tomorrow morning, I am leaving to attend the funeral of my wife's mother. She passed. It was her time, as it will be a time for all of us. And I will be gone from Thursday probably until the next Monday, and then maybe even Tuesday, Wednesday. In addition to the funeral, we have to sort out the estate and get everything ready in this earthly realm for what comes next, liquidation and the selling of a house. And the Swedes, it is said, have an approach, not everybody, but within their culture, to when they feel that the end is near, they sort of clean and take care of material things. And it even has a name. It's called Swedish death cleaning. I don't think that's such a bad idea, because those left among the living, that's like, what do you do with all this stuff? So, I'm going to be popping in and out for the next week or so. All right. But I will be checking my email. So if you have questions, reach me there. Okay. Let's take a look at last week. And I've graded discussions 1 and 2. After week 4, I'll grade 3 and 4. Now, the one piece of feedback that I can give sort of across the board universally, remember to respond to at least 3 people, which is nothing. You got 3 questions and 3 people. That's like 6 posts a week. This is very light. Okay. And some of you have not been responding. Some of you respond to like 1 person. I just can't give you the full points if that's what you do. All right. So be sure to, I don't know why I keep fiddling with my jacket, but it's just bothering me. Be sure to respond to everybody. Okay. Let's take a look at week 3. Question number 1, according to Grabier and Bussy, which byte, the sound or the image byte, has an increasing impact on the audience and why? Okay. Now, this is important because, certain types of information snippets carry more information than others, and certain types of information snippets carry more emotion than others. And it's not simply a matter of, well, this is what people like, therefore this is good. Okay, we need to be a little bit more analytical than that. Okay, Angelia, let's see what you had to say. According to Grabitt and Brucey, image byte has eclipsed the traditional sound byte as the dominant force in shaping voter perception. Correct. And therein lies the problem. All right, because unless what we're seeking as governors and enactors of governance are beauty show contestants, and the running of our republic is not like running a beauty or a talent contest. And what people look like should be way down on the list of whether or not we pay attention to them. But this is not the case. Lucas, you point out as well. Good answer, Angelia. Sound bites are getting shorter, and so the depth and the complexity of the message is decreasing. Screens are getting bigger, and so the emphasis on the visual and better pixel rates. The emphasis on the visual is going up. And politics are increasingly complicated. Images are not. As you say, so I'm just going to read this part of your answer. Images tell the story, or at least part of the story, without requiring the same level of context as print or sound. So in other words, and that's an excellent answer too. So in other words, images convey, and this is how we tend to react to images. They convey impressions that immediately solidify in the mind. Now, this can be a good or a problematic thing. Good in the sense that if it's like, oh, okay, this is what we want as a policy, and how a government to work. Got it. It's right there. It can be problematic in the sense of that the image, we've seen some of these chickens come home to roost, excuse me. The image may convey a completely different message than, say, the image maker thought. So when you have a president that posts an AI generated image of himself, and I know what he said. He said, "Oh, I thought I was a doctor." It's like, no, you're dressed up like Jesus, and you're providing this sort of stretch out laying of hands of healing, and there are people praying around. Okay, can be problematic. Okay. Question number 2: in your opinion, excuse me, are short visual driven sound bites driving social media? Think memes, or is it the other way around? All right. In other words, which one generates which? Is it the platform, and I mean the physical platform that's shaping the content, or is it the content that has shaped the physical and continues to shape the physical platform? Okay. Let's see. I don't know if anybody picked this one out. Let's take a look here very quickly. Oh, hey, okay. We're going to go back to you, Angelia. The more accurate answer is both, but not equally. Short visual-driven content, whether political memes, clips, clip debate moments, or candidate images overlaid with text, drives social media sharing, but the relationship does not stop there. Each time the content is shared, liked, or saved, it signals to the platform's algorithms that similar content should be amplified and pushed into more feeds. The algorithm then does what it was designed to do, rewards engagement by circulating more of what already works. Okay, excellent answer. So yes, it's sort of a trick question. They drive each other. Okay, and here too, we have to be conscientious and aware of this as communication scholars. This can be problematic because what is tending to happen, not what tends to happen. I'm glancing up for a book to see if okay, yeah, it's right here. Excuse me. This is what I'm looking for. What is tending to happen is that content chasing revenue dollars is narrowing itself more and more to what the user and only the type of stuff the user wants to see. Now, one may argue and say, well, what's wrong with that? Why should you show people stuff they don't want to see? Well, because to get to the full feathered truth of what's going on in a culture and in a body politic and in the world, you have to start with the full picture, not just the part of the picture that you want to look at. That other stuff's so boring, or ew, I'm triggered. And by the way, I want to encourage you, if there's something that really upsets you, so-called triggered, think of triggers as a door that you should open, not so like a jump scare you should run away from, because this is your body telling you that something that your body is, some experience that your body associates with that thing, whether it's a word or an image or a sound or a person or whatever, is really causing you a problem. And I'm not saying, oh, just get over it and spend time with that person or the material that triggers you. No. What I am saying is spend a little time, and if it helps, you getting a third party like a therapist to do this, great. Spend a little time figuring out what injury, what trauma your body has associated with this image / experience, and then work on that. Okay. So the psychology aside, back to the point, if people are only shown what they want and they're encouraged to avoid anything that they find boring or distasteful, or they're just not interested in that particular worldview, this initiates a process that's called confirmation bias, We're not being informed by our media. We're just being confirmed in our bias. And that's not good. That's not good for an informed citizenry in terms of its participation in government. And it's not good for how the brain works. And there's a lot of research that's emerging on this that says it's causing a lot of problems. Here's a book I want to recommend concerning that very same topic. It's called The Shallows: What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, and it's by Nicholas Carr. Okay, and he takes a look at what confirmation bias is doing to things like ethics, morality, depth and breadth of information, basic skill sets like knowledge and information recall of the mind. And spoiler alert, all of those trends are headed in a negative direction. So confirmation bias is not your friend. So be aware of it and avoid it. Question number 3. T.E. Patterson, quotes from Walter Lippmann, who said that press-based politics is not workable. And when you consider the nature of the news, it's not even thinkable. And what he means by that is like, why would you even want to do it? What did Lippmann mean by this? Given that Lippmann died before the rise of social media, do you agree with his quoted statement? In other words, is it still relevant today? Okay. Now, Lippmann, of course, is a giant in communication studies, and he had a lot to say about the relationship between news and government and the populace. Charles, let's see what you said. When Lippmann said that press-based politics is not workable, and when you consider the nature of the news, it's not even thinkable, the role of the press is to enlighten voters, investigating and publicizing the issues and the stands of the candidates. Lippmann pointed out that it is not the role of the press to drive political process, okay? That it is the role of the political parties themselves who are supposed to select the candidates, develop their campaigns, and provide the issues on which the candidates run. In 1968, the Democratic Party changed its nomination process so that the delegates to the National Convention had a greater role in selecting the candidates. Apparent democratization of the process shifted the prioritization of candidates' relationship from party leadership focused to delegate or vote focused. However, Lippmann died 2 years before the 1976 presidential election when the effects of this change became apparent. Okay. So did we get to, I'm sorry, I'm skipping along here. Did you get to the, was this relevant to, is this relevant still late? I think Lippmann died a little bit early. I think he died in 74. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. In 76, a veteran farmer and governor of Georgia, Jimmy Carter, ran for president. Okay, however, it demonstrates 2006 press does not determine the winner, but is now a necessary component of each campaign. Lippmann would be appalled by the current political environment and the press's role in it. No longer apolitical bodies, news organizations are key in organizing and conveying campaigns, especially presidential campaigns, where they host debates for presidential candidates. Though individual journalists claim the press does not pick sides, there are indications that it does influence events. Okay, and there are indications that it picks sides too. I mean, newspapers endorse candidates or not. There are entire news channels given over to certain ideologies, and they're pretty easy to pick out. In fact, and by the way, Charles, you're spot on. This phenomenon has become so pronounced, that is, this phenomenon being news agencies aligning themselves politically, first of all, with party ideologies and then candidates. There are news aggregators that help the public sort out who's aligning themselves with whom and how this affects the stories. In particular, if you've never looked at it, I encourage you to take a look at the following. It's a site, and then it has an app that goes on your phone. It's called Ground, like as in to the ground. And it's a news feed. It's an aggregator. It slurps up news. But what it does is it'll give you the story. Let's say, war in Iran, talks stall. And it'll give you copies of that story from different news sources ranking telling you which one is slanting it left or slanting it right, politically speaking, and then which ones are sort of in the middle. And it's really interesting to compare how an event described by a news outlet slanting left differs significantly in its language, in the facts and elements that it covers, to a news organization slanting right, and vice versa. So yes, I think Walter Lippmann would be aghast at this, that our news platforms have become tremendously politicized. All right, question number 4. In your opinion, does use of social media by politicians and political parties represent a revitalization of our democracy, or merely the manipulation of the public on an expanding scale? In other words, since they're using this mass media platform to access more voters, does this mean this is democracy at work, or is this just another means of manipulation? Okay, Akeisha, in your opinion, social media used by politicians clearly a manipulation of the public on an expanding scale. Our president tweets and Instagrams horrible things that he would never say or express on news or in a briefing. Oh, he might. He uses these platforms to manipulate how the U.S. reacts to each other, and in an inability, I think what you mean, to manipulate certain parties, or an ability certain parties to further despicable behaviors. Okay, I think I get what you're saying, but yes, I think that it's quite clear whether, and you see this both on the right and the left. So whether it's Trump or Ocasio-Cortez, using social media, however successfully or unsuccessfully, I believe that is correct, that this is what we're seeing. Question number 5. In an interview concerning the successful 2008 campaign for then candidate Obama, Anita Dunn noted that it was the campaign's daily job to get around the filters. Who is Anita Dunn, and what did she mean by this statement, get around the filters? Is get around the filters good for our democracy? Okay, so this is sort of a two-part question, because excuse me, when you identify who Anita Dunn is, then you sort of get a clue as to what she means. Okay, let's see, Kristen, let's take a look at what you said. Social media, let's see, here we go. Anita Dunn worked on Democratic candidate Barack Obama's election campaign, serving as communication advisor and strategist. In fact, she directed it. She came to the campaign with nearly 30 years of experience. This drove her to focus on overcoming the filters and reaching an audience through the overload of narrative-driven content on the internet. Campaign also employed several other key factors in its strategy, including communication with supporters first, getting around the let's see, the nature of the campaign coverage was totally reactive, Dunn said in a 2009 interview. It was nonstop. There was no content, no analysis. Okay. Let's see. Do you say who the Dunn found important? Ignore some of the more ludicrous questions, topics disconnect the main message. The filters she mentioned can harm democracy. Okay. Who were the filters? Who now, remember, when this will be important for the exam. This is a good answer, by the way, Kristen, but get right to the elements of the question. Okay. So the filters were the traditional gatekeepers of the various news media. The top reporters, editors, producers. And she's like, yeah, we're going to talk to those people. We're just going to leap right over them and talk to the people. But is this good or not? So here's what do you say? Getting around the filters does not harm democracy as a campaign strategy, but we must recognize the distinction between harmful filters created by sensationalists and meaningful interpretation created by news sources. And that's a fair observation as well, because some of the filters, I mean, if you're talking to like TMZ, what is it they're going to focus on? Okay, and maybe you don't want to have that conversation. Allowing all of these to exist as part of our nation's democratic process. And when you say all of these, meaning like these processes, and we must continue to uphold truth-seeking values across all channels in our media and political communication. Okay, fair enough. I'm just not quite sure what you mean when you say all of these. Question 6 is so-called attack journalism good for democracy. And this attack journalism, this goes hand in hand with muckraking. Okay, and in fact they're practically one and the same. Okay, I let's see. Yeah, okay, Bob. Attack journalism described as aggressive media coverage resulting from the press, frustration due to campaign staff restrictions, journalists' access to bias, the media industry. Yeah, that can be sometimes what motivates it, but it can be just sensationalism. Sabato in Gravier outlines that the refusal of access to journalists is linked to the political perception that media aim to hurt or destroy a candidate. The situation illustrates how attack journalism impacts quality of work of the institution. Respond, considering the media coverage focuses on minor issues or rumors instead of candidates' policies, which may directly affect the people's lives. Attack journalism could be considered useless to democracy. To some extent, attack journalism could be considered meaningful to democracy if if the rumor covered is revealed to be true. Okay. Now here's something by way of habit that I want you to do when you're answering the questions. Take a side. All right. Don't go, well, it could be this and it could be that. I'm not criticizing you, Bob. I'm talking to you, all of you, as a process, by way of a process. Okay. So what if you had to take a side, what would it be? All right. Finally, question number 7. Cracking the code of media influence on the public attitude and behavior, especially concerning political positions and voting patterns, is the golden fleece for candidates. I should have given you a bonus. What do we mean by golden fleece? And campaigns. In 2016, Hillary Clinton spent more money and produced more social media content than Donald Trump, yet she lost the 2016 election. Based on what you read in MAP, what are some of the reasons for Donald Trump's 2016 presidential victory? In your opinion, could these reasons translate into victory for Donald Trump in 2024? Spoiler alert, it did. Okay. So she outspent him, but did she outcover him? Okay, because just because some media outlet's willing to take your money doesn't mean that it's going to be you know a good investment. And I don't think anybody answered question number 7. All right, so let me answer it for you. Why did she lose and he won? Okay, so really 3 reasons. Number 1, she was, she was old and he was new, and I'm not talking about age. Americans have I might even say addiction for novelty. I mean, consider how the country came into being. We were it was the new world. This was the new system of government, the new this, the new that. That sense that new is better than old has never left us as a country. We're constantly chasing out what is new. And Donald Trump was not a career politician, had never held public office. I mean, anything. He hadn't even been a dog catcher before becoming president of the United States. What? He was very, very media savvy, much more than Hillary Clinton and those who were around her. Because, and by the way, that none of this is criticism of the 2 individuals. This is analysis of what happened. Because Hillary Clinton had enjoyed media attention driven by the titles and offices that she held. First Lady of Arkansas, then First Lady of the Nation, and then Senator, and then Secretary of State. She had not developed a system to attract media attention. Media came to her because of the positions of power. Donald Trump had spent an entire life, had built and supplemented revenue streams around using media to draw attention to himself. So he understood the product, the process, much better than she did. So first and foremost, she was old to the political process. He was new. Secondly, the reasons that media came to her were different than media came to him. And then finally, third, because of 1 and 2, he had a much better understanding of what media would produce support, even bad media, than she did and those advising her. And as a consequence, he didn't spend a lot. He simply did and said things at limited events that then brought the press running to him, saying, "Oh my Lord, could you believe what he said? Can you believe what he did?" And he's still in that groove. Now, is that effective for governing? Okay, because remember, all politicians have two jobs. Job number one is to get elected. Job number two is to govern to get reelected. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. Now, when I wrote this question, I wrote this prior to 2024, and I was sort of love him or hate him, that this guy was reelected in 2024 shows an extremely in-depth understanding of the media and the relationship to the populace and governance. Because not only had he been president before, so now he was sort of, the part of the old group, but he'd lost and been dragged into court for a number of reasons and been convicted. And again, you can say, well, justly, unjustly, all right. And there just didn't seem to be anything that sticks to this guy. Very media savvy at getting elected. Now, he doesn't have to get reelected again, so he can be media unsavvy while he governs. But the question is going to be, how is his use of the media, which is from a communication perspective, I would say that he's not good at using media while he governs. There are some significant shortcomings. But the question now is, how will those shortcomings impact members of his party that want to run and attain the same office as the office of the presidency once he's gone? Because what incumbent presidents do has significant impact on those who follow them, like vice presidents or secretaries of state, like Marco Rubio. I think would be a very, very interesting candidate. That's sort of up in the air. Okay, everybody, half an hour is up. Our time is up. Thank you very much for your hard work. All right. Remember your second film review. I will grade discussions after week 4 because we're doing them 2 weeks at a whack. Otherwise, keep on what you're doing. Keep on keeping on. All right. I think about you. I pray about you, and I will see you on Canvas. Take care. Bye-bye.